Hi, this is Alex, and what you're about to watch is a recording of my talk at last year's Make with Notion showcase in London. During my talk, I had the chance to tell my story with Notion Consulting, and share a lot of my experiences and tips about implementing Notion in a business. Enjoy.
So let's give a huge round of applause for Alex.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Faisa. And let's dive in. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex, and today I'm going to tell you my story of how my team and I transformed over 80 small businesses with Notion. Let's go. Let's hear the backstory first. As a kid, Lego was my number one toy. Then growing up as a teen, Minecraft was my favorite game. You can see the pattern, blocks, right? Then here's a picture of me aged 4 or 5 pretending to be a tram driver. And then here's this little airport map. I'm sure many of you recognize this one. It was my favorite toy as well. What all this means, well, I was obsessed with systems, as in collections of things that all have a function and then come together to make something larger work. I was obsessed with this concept of blocks as well, and building beautiful and functional things from same building blocks. And then, as you can imagine, when I first encountered Notion back in 2018 as a student, I absolutely fell in love at first sight. It was the first piece of software that was actually fun. You know, coming from Microsoft Office, Excel, PowerPoint, tools that were never too pretty. They were functional, yes, but they were never too pretty and never too fun. Notion felt more like play than work. And so I fell in love with this app so hard that I decided that I need to talk about it with other people. And so I co-founded the r/Notion subreddit back in 2018, which I think still to this day is the largest Notion community on the web. Then I got invited into the Notion Ambassadors program all the way back in 2019. And I thought, okay, there's so many curious, creative, and kind people in this community, because that's what the Notion community truly is. Let's bring them together. And so back in 2019, I started organizing Notion meetups, first in my hometown of Kraków, Poland. As you can see, I wasn't very good at taking group photos back then, but hey, there's proof. Just a bunch of nerds nerding out about digital tools. But then my passion for Notion grew and grew, and I was privileged enough to help set up Notion communities in many places around the world, meeting thousands of curious, creative, and kind people. You know, I always say I wanted to be an artist, and art still has a very important place in my heart, even though now, you could say I'm a tech pro, but that's what I love about the Notion community. So over the past 6 years, I've hosted over 60 community meetups in a bunch of countries in Europe, spreading the love about Notion. And today, my career is split into 3 different things all around Notion. First, I work with Thomas Frank. Some of you might recognize the name. And we're running the largest Notion YouTube channel about Notion, teaching Notion B2C how to use this wonderful tool in your personal life. Then I run Balanced Systems with my co-founder Jakub. You can meet us at one of the booths back there in the main hall, where we help businesses implement this tool to streamline and optimize their workflows. And I still continue doing community stuff. It's fun, right? All right, so today's stories are gonna be about Balanced Systems. Let's dive in. So the problem is that small business owners are really overwhelmed by the whole concept of digitalization and introducing new tools. As a small business owner, you're already stretched, distressed. You're often faced with, low margins, right? Market unpredictability. All of us here probably remember COVID, right? If you're a mom and pop store, you're often barely making ends meet with costs of doing business going up. So when a tech pro like me comes to you and says, oh, you gotta drop everything you're doing, spend a bunch of money on implementing a tool like Notion, it's always a hard sell. But why small businesses specifically? Because over the past 4 years, as I was running Balanced Systems with my team, we specifically focused on small businesses and actually rejected a lot of larger clients. Well, I think that you, as a small business owner, you're just so close to impact. Every customer is a story, not a number in an Excel spreadsheet. You feel so close to your mission. And then small business leaders are some of the most passionate, driven people, full of grit, that truly drive this economy forward. Okay, so what's the solution? Well, this is pretty obvious. Notion is the solution, but let me tell you why. Well, there are three core things. First of all, is the flexibility. I mean, we all know this. We've been hearing about this all day yesterday and all day today. It's the all-in-one workspace. You can replace a lot of your tools. That's pretty obvious, but it's also pretty important. But the second point is most important for me, is the scalability, because I do mostly work with small businesses. That's the focus, right? But with Notion, I have the confidence that it's a tool that, yes, it will work for a small mom and pop store, but if they do decide to grow to a nationwide chain, Notion will still work with them. It's truly a tool that scales. And well, thirdly, it's reliability. I've been using Notion for over 7 years now, pretty much every day, and I know it's an app, service, and team that I can trust. So let me walk you through a few stories. First of all, it was a restaurant and cafe we worked with. There were 2 different venues, but managed by the same team. And they were struggling after a bit of a failed rebrand where their revenue was down 20% year on year. And the owner decided, as one of the recovery points of a recovery plan was, okay, let's tie up our back end and improve our operations, to make up for the lost revenue. So we built a lot of great things for them. We centralized their entire system. Before, they were using completely separate systems for front and back of house. They were using an old piece of software that they were really underutilizing and overpaying for, and a lot of Excel files, of course. We integrated their POS system right into Notion, something that before was a completely siloed off place with information, was not connected anywhere else. We built a produce management database. Before, they were literally filling out paper orders every single time, and they had to look into the fridge what was there. Well, now, with our help, they had a Notion database, so they didn't have to look into the fridge, just into Notion. It was so much easier to make orders with Notion database automations. Now we built a staff management database. Before, they managed their staff and shifts in a text chain that was as messy as you can imagine. We replaced that with a clean, functional Notion database. And we built a content marketing system for them, which allowed them to stop working with an external marketing agency, which was also partly responsible for the failed rebrand, and save a lot of cost. And we built an online menu of Notion sites. You have no idea how expensive it can be to order a custom online menu for a restaurant. Well, the results speak for themselves. They saw a 58% reduction in cost on yearly software spend. We built one scalable system for both venues, and management finally had a full overview of the business and didn't have to look into 2 different places for the 2 different venues. And we cut down the time to onboard a new employee from up to 16 hours to just about 2 with a clean SOP in Notion. The second story is a little bit different. It's a little bit bigger of a company, but they were nonprofit. A truly mission-driven, affordable housing nonprofit. I think we can all relate to this, especially living in big cities like London that are quickly pricing out a lot of residents. So this mission really resonated with my mission in business. What we built for them, again, it was centralization. They were paying for really expensive software that they did not know how to use, that some snake oil salesman sold them a dozen years ago. We replaced massively large Excel files with thousands of sheets and tens of thousands of cells. We connected 2 teams which weren't working on the same data before, finance and reporting. They now had a clean Notion system. We built a builder management database because you can imagine, as a building company, you have a lot of contractors to manage. They all now had that in a single place. One thing which I think was the most important was this clean, functional stakeholder portal right in Notion. As a nonprofit, they're often working with both public and private money, and now you could show the results clearly for their stakeholders. We built a contractors database. Those are contractors that manage already built properties, admin, maintenance, cleaning, a lot of businesses and contractors to manage. And we integrated this entire system with their external accounting software. And again, the results speak for themselves. We saw a 77% decrease in monthly software costs after we got rid of that old expensive piece of software. And they reported a 40% improvement in the effectiveness of their workflows. They were really happy with Notion. Because this is the impact that Notion brings to a small business. And I see it in 3 core ways. First of all, it's the clarity, right? You can see what's actually happening in your business. You can now ask Notion AI, hey, what's up, right? It's such a simple question, but it's often such a hard answer. Well, more autonomy. And this is actually the most important thing for me. I always tell my clients, I don't want you coming back every year with every single, I don't want you asking for help with every single modification you want to do. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help you set up Notion in the best way possible. But I want to empower you to do your work better, not have you coming back every time for help. And now with the release of Notion Agent, this is so much easier because my clients can see and work with the system we built for themselves and then expand its use themselves. And well, it's competitiveness because with Notion, we can bring true ERP functions to smaller businesses at a fraction of the cost from traditional software, compared to traditional software. Takeaways, business, fun, right? Let's talk about a few takeaways from this journey. The first one is, well, be confident but adaptable. I think here in this room today, we have a lot of small business leaders, but we have a few larger business leaders. I think this is the most important lesson, right? Small business owners are the bravest people I know. They face challenges. They have no board. They have no investors. They have no shareholders to fall back on when times get tough. They have to steer through every storm themselves. But then on the other hand, they need to pair with that with adaptability, right? They're the first to feel any changes in the market. They're the first to fold when things go wrong. So they need to stay on the verge of things. But this is the most important one, actually, because I often hear CEOs, owners, founders, when we start a project together, they're like, okay, Alex, here's this VP, here's this CEO person, they're going to manage the implementation. I'm too busy to care. And I always say, dear CEO, dear owner, dear founder, I know you're busy, you got a lot going on, but please be part of the implementation because we're going to go through every workflow. We're going to turn every stone. We'll review the whole business because we need to put it into Notion and make it work in Notion. You're going to learn so much about your business if you actively participate in a Notion implementation. And the third takeaway is, well, Notion works long term. This is a self-reported survey from my clients. There's a chance someone put a different answer, not to hurt my feelings, but I still think it's pretty accurate. Over 70% report continued use after 4 years and expansion of this use. This is what I care about most, empowering businesses, not making them reliant on my own services. So now the story takes a bit of a different journey. We're still working with one-to-one relationships. We're still doing consulting. You can chat to us, myself and my co-founder Jakub, there in the back. But I'm working together with Thomas on the best course to learn in Notion, both for personal and team use. So if you scan this code and you sign up for a waitlist, you'll be the first to hear when we release the course. Thank you so much, and back to Faisa. Appreciate it.
Alrighty, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and of course, thanks Notion for inviting me twice. This was actually my second time speaking in 2025 at Notion events because I also did this talk 1 month earlier in Berlin. Now, if you would like to get some help with your business, with using Notion in your business to streamline operations and to just make sense of what's going on in your business, all the stuff that I talked about in the video, I still practice Notion consulting, and I would be happy to help you as well. So if you head to my website, balancesystems.io, you can reach out to my team and I, and we will do our best to help you run your business better. We can both do just simple Notion coaching, kind of focus on specific areas or just give you the best practices, or we can also help you actually build an entire workspace and then assist you with the rollout of this wonderful tool across your company. We usually work with smaller businesses, like I said in that talk, but we've also worked with larger companies, so we have experience across the entire range, both in terms of industries and size. And if you just want to connect with me, you can go to my LinkedIn on screen right now and follow me for best Notion tips and just general thoughts about tech operations, living a good life, and running a business. Wow. All right. Have a good one. Cheers.